Well, hello, everybody. I'm so honored to address you today at this Inspiring 40 event. I apologize that I can't be with you at the Werkspoorfabriek in Utrecht, but unfortunately I have to be at the COP26, and you agree with me, that's an important place to be right now. But it's great to see 200 plus leaders in the room today, and leaders you are, all committed to transform your business models, to bring in new technologies and creative ideas, to tackle the world's biggest challenges, like climate change and inequality. And I'm particularly grateful to Synergie, who's organizing today's session. A B Corp themselves, which is admirable, whose purpose it is to make business for good the new normal. I could not think of a better purpose than that. It's exactly the type of leadership that we need right now to accelerate this movement. Well, we all know the challenges. Our global economic system is broken. We've discovered that we can't have infinite growth on a finite planet, and anything you can't do indefinitely is by definition unsustainable. This year, the World Overshoot Day, which is the day that we use up more resources than the world can replenish, was July 29th. In fact, I would argue that every day after that, we're actually stealing from future generations. We're living well beyond the planetary boundaries. And COVID shows that complexity and interrelationship. No healthy people on an unhealthy planet. Unfortunately, our societies are being pulled apart on every measure, in inequality and poverty and injustice, and in so many other countries and communities. We see now that we are actually worse off than before the pandemic. Our political systems that normally deal with these challenges are stuck. Too many national governments paralyzed by self-interest. Global governance structures unable to bring solutions to these shared and aligned challenges. For evidence, don't look further than the distribution of the COVID vaccine. 70% plus distributed in the developed markets, but only 4% in the developing markets. Outright stupid, and a great sign of how low we have come in international cooperation. And yes, time is running out. Last month, the IPCC report confirmed that we don't have until 2050 to tackle climate change, nor until 2040. We need to have real progress by 2030. This is the decade of action. And yes, our ambitions need to go up. Almost everyone now accepts that business cannot sit on the sidelines. We need business as a force for good, and we need it now to implement the changes needed at the speed and scale that is required, with industry leaders driving tipping points in all of their key sectors, and hopefully giving the politicians the courage to be more ambitious and to be bolder. And this is exactly the strategy with which we're going into the COP26 here in Glasgow. Many CEOs see this. They see that they have to step up. They see the enormous opportunities. They're no longer debating the why. They've seen that the cost of inaction is now significantly higher than the cost of action. Study after study has shown that the multi-purpose, multi-stakeholder, longer-term, purpose-driven business models are also giving you better returns. Technology is on our side. We always underestimate the speed with which technology is going. Millennials and Gen Z are crying out loud for it. Investors indeed are getting interested, not perhaps driven by the morality of it, but increasingly seeing the enormous economic opportunity. Over $50 trillion is expected to be in ESG investing by 2050. $100 trillion of money, that's half the world's money, is now making commitments to decarbonize their portfolios by 2050. But many business leaders are still struggling with the how. No surprise, as this is probably one of the toughest changes we have to make and difficult trade-offs we have to navigate. And therefore, many can't do it alone. So whilst we're seeing momentum in the private sector, including the commitments and actions that we couldn't have dreamt of, frankly, a few years ago, the growing challenge means that it requires all of us to work differently together. In fact, of the world's largest corporations now, encouragingly, over 20% have made commitments to be in line with the science-based targets. So we have a core of key organizations that is taking that responsibility. But too many changes are happening for many of the other companies to embrace it. When you have the change of the industrial revolution and the speed of the technological revolution, it is not easy to be a CEO. It is not easy to keep your head above the water. And this is why we wrote the book Net Positive, How Courageous Companies Thrive by Giving More Than They Take. I wrote it with my good friend Andrew Winsten, who you might know from also The Big Pivot and from Green to Gold, two incredibly powerful books that certainly helped guide my decisions in the past. We believe that there is no systems change without organizational change. And frankly, no organizational change without individual leadership change. This is as much a leadership transformation as it is a systems transformation. We've tried to bring together in this book the best lessons from Unilever and other pioneering companies in the world to create a practical guide of being net positive, thriving by giving more than you take, profiting by fixing the world's problems, not by creating the world's problems, establishing sustainability at the core of a corporate strategy, which now, frankly, has become a precondition of success. What we already see is that leading companies go beyond this and are actually also becoming systemic actors, using their size and influence to drive the broader transformational changes. We describe in the book Net Positive companies that improve the well-being of everyone it impacts at all scales, every product, every operation, every region, every country, and for every stakeholder, including employees, suppliers, communities, customers, and yes, also the planet and future generations. Our aim is to help leaders transform their companies inside and out, prospering as a result. We've tried to put a laser-sharp focus on the how. The essence is to profit, not from creating the world's problems once more, but from solving them. By simply asking the question, is the world better off because your company is around? Yes or no? How to take full responsibility for your social and environmental impact well beyond scope 1 and 2. Many companies still think that they can outsource their value chains and also outsource their responsibilities. Not anymore. Net positive companies take a responsibility of their total impact in society, all consequences, intended or not. How to run this multi-stakeholder longer-term model instead of myopic focus on the shareholders, driving this deeper longer-term value creation and benefiting ultimately the shareholders as well. How to create these deep partnerships based on trust, aligned objectives, accountability, transparency, including with governments, your critics, your competitors. Uncomfortable at times for sure, but that's the only way to solve the biggest challenges that we have. And then finally, how to be consistent, how to deal with the tougher challenges in the room. We call them the elephants in the room. Corruption, money in politics, human rights, CEO salaries, having trade associations advocate different things than what you stand for. Ultimately, the book is about how you transform yourself, your company, your culture, and how you engage with everybody directly or indirectly involved to create this world that we want, this more equitable, sustainable world. It isn't easy. Unilever certainly wasn't perfect. I think nobody is. But it's the only path that we can walk on, in our opinion, if we want to solve these challenges. And for that, I hope that you will enjoy the reading, and not only enjoy it, but that it will also transform not only your own thinking, your own leadership, but also the companies that you're creating. And many are moving to this more regenerative, positive, restorative thinking. It is true that most companies are still in the CSR space of being less bad, but when you overshoot these planetary boundaries at such levels, less bad is simply not good enough anymore. If you were murdering 10 people and now you decide to murder 5 people only, you're not a better murderer. Sustainability, being neither good or bad, is not anymore the answer either. We need to start thinking restorative, reparative, regenerative, and that is net positive. Walmart making regenerative commitments on agriculture. Unilever doing the same thing. Google using their algorithms to help us live more sustainably. Microsoft recapturing carbon since they started in 1975. All examples of regenerative thinking that is starting to creep in to the business models. But indeed, it ultimately comes down to leadership. We've never been so forewarned and forearmed with tools to do something about it. We know what we need to do. And ultimately, it is our individual and collective willpower that makes the decision. The leaders that have thrived during COVID were leaders with a high level of compassion and empathy, humanity, humility, understood the power of purpose, working in partnership, systemic thinking, and yes, thinking multi-generational. These are the leaders that create that confidence, that following, that resilience that is needed to thrive in the future. Companies that continue to deny this trend or ignore this trend, I think will increasingly meet him in the graveyard of dinosaurs. Companies that embrace it will be well positioned as we build back this better, greener, and more inclusive future. I always like to quote the Iranian poet Rumi, who said in the 13th century that yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. But today I am wise, so I'm changing myself. And that is why it's so important that you're all there today to change yourselves and to change yourselves collectively for impact. That's the spirit on Net Positive, working to improve your personal capabilities, your organizational capabilities, and ultimately driving these broader systems capabilities. We wrote the book for all of you. We're trying to create that movement. It's off to a great start. I hope soon to talk to each of you in person and to embrace you as part of this. Thanks for the opportunity. Enjoy this special day and hope to see you soon again. Thank you.